Hey, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Matt Cash. I'm the president of the Carolinas Association of Collegiate Registrars and Admissions Officers. Appreciate you joining us today. I do want to be mindful of everyone's time, and folks can join in as they become available. So do want to be mindful of your time. So we will go ahead and get started. What we're going to be talking about today is CACRAO programming and other forms of recruitment travel. In the past, I focused a little bit in presenting this particular topic. I would lean a little bit more toward travel tips and that type of thing. However, now that by the time in-person events roll back around for fall of 2021, we're largely going to be 2 entire years removed from in-person events. So I do want to give everyone kind of an idea of what to expect. I do not have a session facilitator for this one, so I apologize if I miss any questions in the chat. I like to keep this really informal. I think we have around 25 folks that are on board right now. So feel free to unmute yourselves, turn the cameras on and that type of thing. So because I know that after office turnover and lots of folks are onboarding in the admissions process, you might really not know what to expect with the type of events that CACRAO organizes across the Carolinas. So just to tell you a little bit about myself, again, I'm Matt Cash. I serve as president of CACRAO. I have been with the University of South Carolina system since March of 2008. I began with USC Upstate as an admissions counselor and recruiter. And then November of 2012, I began as a coordinator of recruitment and assistant director of admission, and now associate director of admission at the University of South Carolina, Beaufort. I know a lot of folks, you'll probably research folks by going to institutional websites. So I do want to give the disclaimer that starting August 2nd, I will be joining the staff at Converse University in Spartanburg, South Carolina as director of admission. So if you're looking for my information at USCB, I will shortly be transitioning out and starting a new adventure with Converse, and really excited about that. So again, thank you all for joining, and we will get started with the formal part of the presentation. So typically with CACRAO programming, we offer about 250 events throughout the fall as part of what would usually be considered circuit college fair travel. So that includes educational opportunity college fairs. You might hear it referred to as EDOP is the most common way to say it, shortened. So those are the circuit college fairs where you might go from school to school to school during the day. There might be a consolidated college fair as well. And I actually have an example of a previous year's schedule that I'll show you just to kind of get an idea of what it looks like, the durations and that type of thing. We also offer school counselor conferences. There are 5 of those across the state in North Carolina, and we also do 4 of those across the state in South Carolina as well. I'll also have an outline of all of the travel weeks to share. Now, don't feel obligated to jot all these notes down and everything. Most of this information comes from our website. It is updated with the most current information. So once we get into the outline of weeks, just know that that's posted on our website. And again, I'll show you a sample schedule of a previous EDOP and then kind of a tentative itinerary for what school counselor conferences look like. Although we are planning a return and operating on a return to full in-person recruitment events, we do think that it is still important to offer virtual opportunities for those prospective students and their families that cannot join us in person. So we do want to also be sure that we're serving students across the Carolinas in all the formats, because even with a return to in-person, I believe that what COVID taught us is that the virtual component to it is still important and allows us to reach an even broader cross-section of students for a wide variety of reasons. So just to give you an idea of what EDOP college fairs in North Carolina looks like. So North Carolina runs concurrent weeks. So basically there are 2 weeks going on in 2 different regions of the state during 1 calendar week. So basically you would have, at least 2 recruiters out one would be covering. For
Yes.
example, you have the first week kicking off September 13th through September 17th. So you have one region traveling in Asheville. Then you have another week going on concurrently in Boone as well. And it goes all the way through the first week of November. And then we also tentatively block off an extra week there at the end, just in case there needs to be any kind of reschedules or anything along those lines, because we are traveling during hurricane season. So inevitably, not inevitably, but it does happen to where schools close out of an abundance of caution for storms moving through or something along those lines. So we just like to make sure that we have an area already set aside to where if we need to reschedule or postpone or something along those lines, we have a plan in place to where we do that. School counselor conferences in North Carolina. Again, I mentioned earlier, there are 5 of those events going on. And that will be the week of September 20th through the 24th. And more details as far as we're just in the final stages of signing contracts and that type of thing. We'll definitely be sure to post the exact location of those, but these are the cities that are primarily the service areas for the school counselor conferences. In South Carolina, this is what's going to be different for this year. So in order for us to accommodate more schools being able to confirm their participation in a return to in-person programming, we are running concurrent weeks in South Carolina as well. That allows us to get a later start to allow for more schools to confirm their participation, high schools that is. So that we could get a delayed start, but still finish on time and not extend the schedule too far into November, because we want to be mindful of institutions that have deadlines in November as far as initial application deadlines, that type of thing. So we try and have everything wrapped up as early in November as possible. So that is going to be different for folks that usually travel South Carolina, with those concurrent weeks going on, both an A week and a B week. Going on within the calendar week. And then there are 4 school counselor conferences in South Carolina. So we will start, it's the week of, well, it's still the 20th and 24th through the 24th like it is in North Carolina, but there are only events starting that Tuesday. So you'll be in the upstate area. Typically, we do it either in Greenville or Spartanburg. We're finalizing that event location down to. And then one for the PD, Florence, Myrtle Beach area, another one for Charleston, Beaufort, Hilton Head, and that type of area on Thursday. And then we wrap back up usually in the Columbia area for the Midlands Conference. So again, whereas EdOp, and I'm sorry, I forgot to change that out. That should say school counselor conferences up there at the top. So I apologize for that confusion. I copied the formatting exactly over. So this is for the school counselor conference week. So the main difference in between EdOp, that is college fairs geared more specifically towards prospective students. We invite high school juniors and seniors to participate in those programs. And it's a mixture. Sometimes we'll be going into individual high schools. Other times it's more of a consolidated event where maybe we're in a convention or a civic center and students are transported to that central location. So it's more of like a true convention center style college fair. So what I'm going to do at this point, I'm just going to break out of the presentation. And I should still be sharing my screen, but I want to give you an idea of what one of the travel weeks for 2019 looked like. So basically, all of this information will be posted to the CACRAO website once we are prepared to launch registration in early August. So that will be the earliest that a full schedule is going to be available. However, in the meantime, we have the geographic regions that are going to be traveled posted to the website. So that should give our member institutions and those people that will be traveling those areas an idea of what the territory is, what counselor you should assign to it based on what area will be traveling at that point. So we're using Orangeburg and Richland week for South Carolina as the example for this one, because it has a good mixture of the information available and a broad representation of the type of events that we do offer. So we actually start off with some of the recommended hotels. You do not have to use these hotels. Sometimes we're able to negotiate a rate, but we don't block rooms. These are just recommendations from the EDOP committee members based on the areas that will be traveled. So it's partially, they look at rates, but they also factor in things like what would be the most convenient hotel as far as an early start, like a commute to the next day's events and that type of thing. So we usually post some hotel recommendations. Again, sometimes there'll be a negotiated rate, but ultimately those reservations are up to the individual institutions and the people traveling that week. We also try and provide some links for some restaurant information where you can grab a bite either during lunch times, because sometimes we don't have a whole lot of time in between events, and you'll kind of get an idea of how condensed the schedule can be here in a little bit. But we do like to, for evening hours and downtime and that type of thing, just to give you some dining options as well. So we're just going to kind of scroll through this here. So again, this is kind of the Columbia, Blythewood area, some of the Richland District 2 schools. So this is what the schedule looked like. Typically, we're going to be at a high school no more than 1 hour to 1 hour and 15 minutes. So that is the typical timeline that we operate under. So you'll see for this particular date, we got started at 10 a.m. And then wrap up at 11 a.m. and then you have 45 minutes to get to the next school. We also like to include kind of an estimate of how many students you can expect to see. That way you can plan accordingly for the materials as far as brochures and displays and that type of thing that you want to have included. We also include the contact information for the person. Basically, this would usually be the school counselor contact at the particular EDOP event or high school that we're traveling to. And then the program arranged by is going to be the CACRAO EDOP committee member that basically plan things on our side of the events. We do have, I mean, everyone has some sort of GPS advice either on their phone or still one of those separate devices that you plug in at the car, or navigation in your car's console. But we still do have some of the directions. You want to make sure that you pay attention to this, because even though you might be using GPS, it might take you to a different entrance of the school. Like, for example, if you are going to Westwood High School and let's say the event is in the gym clear on the back side of the school, where they just kind of let you immediately into the back parking lot and in through one of the doors there, but you don't pay attention to that and you go immediately to the main office, you might have quite the haul to get from point A to point B. So just make sure that you still pay attention to this, because it will give you information on where to park, an estimated travel time to get there as well. So basically we wrap up at Westwood High School at 11 a.m. and then you have 45 minutes to make it about the 18 minutes to Ridgeview High School, which is also in that same Richland District 2, kind of the north side of Columbia up I-77. Again, directions that you probably won't use, but you would miss this parking lot information where it tells you, go ahead and head to the back of the school or something along those lines. And then this particular week, this is later that evening, there is a consolidated college fair that night from 5 to 7. And again, this is not to say this is what's happening for this year. I'm just pointing this out as an example, okay? So it's a combination. It could be daytime events. The consolidated fair could be at a central venue like District 2's, they call it R2I2, the Richland District 2 Institution for Innovation, kind of like a district office type area. So this is a consolidated program in the evening where families come of their own volition. Sometimes community-based organizations might bus some of their program students in or something along those lines. But then sometimes the consolidated college fair like this one is during the day. So this is where we shift gears to Richland District 1 which is a lot of the downtown area of Columbia, and I think part of Lexington counties as well. So you can see this is held at the Carolina Coliseum, part of University of South Carolina's campus. And for these types of events, you have the duration over there, who the main central planning for the school or the school district side of things, who that person is, contact information for the CACRAO person that also planned it as well. The reason why we want you to have this information is not really to hit them up for, not necessarily like event information, but let's say your car broke down on the way to the college fair or something along those lines. We would want you to reach out to that person so that, if you have prospective students coming up to an empty table and they're going to be like, well, why isn't XYZ institution here? Did they just not show up? Or are they broken down? They're on their way or something along those lines. So again, it's not necessarily something to stay in regular contact with them for, but just more if an emergency happens or you're running behind for some reason, that way maybe they could put a placard or something like that on their table so that they don't think that you were just a no-show, but there was an emergency or some other event that's causing the delay or the absence. And again, you'll see some parking information over here as well. And again, just some of the information over here as far as what to expect, as far as you'll see full-size floor displays, only tabletop size will be permitted inside the Coliseum. Just important notes like that as far as what kinds of materials to bring in. Oh, it also includes a list of the schools that are participating in the event. And then after that, you can see that we're back to the individual school visits. After that, again, these last typically about an hour. Usually I don't see too many of them lasting under 45 minutes. So usually 45 minutes to an hour and 15 minutes as far as when we're going to the individual schools is fairly common. On occasion, if it is just a massive high school that we're going to, those might sometimes go longer than 2 hours. But we'll always make you aware of that information. And you'll also see like some of these events have like charges on here. We're not shaking you down for money at the door. This is going to be part of the initial registration before you really even hit the road. So we're not going to be passing around a collection plate at the event. Don't feel like you have to have this kind of cash on you. This will have already, in theory, been taken care of before you hit the road. And I'll kind of give you an idea of, I already mentioned like August 9th is going to be the latest that we plan to get the registration live for this. And then we don't start traveling until mid-September. So there's definitely time to get the registration in and that type of thing. And really from there, I mean, it just kind of repeats itself a little bit. You go to different schools about an hour at a time, they're fairly close together. So you have adequate time to get to the next institution. And then that pretty much concludes that particular week. So I just wanted to use that as an example. Now that we ran through like what to expect a little bit during EdOp, before we move on, are there any questions? And feel free to either unmute yourself or you can put them in the chat. I'll try and keep an eye on both. Okay, sorry, it started me over. Okay, so I did mention earlier, Sarah, I saw that you were unmuting yourself there for a little bit. It popped up. Did you have a question? I'm sorry.
No, I didn't. I just joined and I was clicking off my mute. I'm sorry.
All righty, we will continue on. So I mentioned that we will also still be offering virtual programming for, oh, wait a second, I do have a question in the chat. Okay, so Sally asked, are there fees for the high school events too? Typically, I won't say never, but typically those are events that there's not a charge for. When there start having to be charges, or is like if the school doesn't have enough tables of their own and they reach out to CACRAO and then we make advance payment. to them. We might have to put like a smaller charge on some of the high school events. However, that is one of the things. So to basically participate in EdOp, there is kind of an initial registration fee that's charged at both a member rate and then a slightly higher non-member rate. So basically that initial registration fee is the thing that we hope covers those smaller incidental charges that CACRAO might have to make, so that we don't have to go back in and for each individual high school, like institute like a $15 shared fee or something along those lines. So typically you wouldn't have to worry about that for the individual fairs, but there is that initial registration fee to basically access the schedule. And that hopefully covers like the incidental type, smaller charges to where we don't have to put a charge on every single event. So I hope that answers the question. Thanks, Sally. So we will be still participating in offering virtual college exploration programs. So our partner that we have worked with since fall of 2020, once events were canceled due to COVID, schools were closed as far as for in-person instruction. So we were lucky to have a really strong partner in StriveScan, and that's the company that offers the foundation for our virtual programs. So in fall of 2020, we did, if any of y'all were around at that point, we did a combination of information sessions and then panel presentations. It was over 300 hours of content that we put together, and it was outstanding programming. What we are shifting to, and you may have seen a preview of this in spring of 2021, is the 6x6 virtual college fair platform, and that's what we will be offering this fall. So we are still excited to have StriveScan on board with us. So some of the tentative dates that you can be thinking about for that is for high school students on October 11th, we will be offering a virtual 6x6 fair. So you might be asking what that format looks like. So if you're not familiar with it, basically 6x6 means you have 6 colleges presenting together in a single session, given 6 minutes each. And then that allows for a little bit of Q&A time at the end. There's a 45-minute window. So these programs run concurrently. So you might have 5 or 6 sessions going on at a time. I know in the spring, it was still a very popular option because schools weren't really open for high schools, that is, for a lot of college rep visits and that type of thing. So we wanted to be sure that even though CACRAO doesn't typically offer spring programming, that we still offered a service for our member institutions to still be able to connect with a broad cross section of prospective students. So again, 6x6 just means 6 colleges presenting 6 minutes each in the order that they're paired. And then there might be several concurrent sessions going on at one time. Now, what we are doing for the fall is we have an extra date blocked off for October 12th. So the reason why we're doing that is so that we can possibly limit the number of concurrent sessions that are going on at a time. I wouldn't call it an overflow date, but we're going to see what registrations look like. And then if we need to factor in that second date to where there aren't quite as many sessions going on at a given time, then we can kind of consolidate those a bit or expand them just depending on registration. So October 11th, and then tentatively have the 12th. Now you'll see I have it blocked off from 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. That's just because there are concurrent session slots that start at 5 p.m., 6 p.m., and 7 p.m. So you're only presenting one time, or your institution is only presenting one time. So really your commitment is only that 1 hour-ish window of logging in if you're the one presenting a little bit before the hour starts. And then your 45-minute commitment to that session. So really don't think about it necessarily as 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. Think of it as really more of like your hour slot that you'll want to allow yourself for that particular programming. So we are also offering a transfer student fair, and that will be on October 18th. Now the 11th and 18th are both Mondays. October 18th is the first day of National Transfer Student Week. So we're working very closely with the institutions or the professional organizations that work closely with transfer student advisement, that type of thing, to really promote these programs so that we have a strong turnout of transfer students as well. Are there any questions about virtual programming? Again, we plan to have that registration launched no later than Monday, August 9th. It's entirely possible that this is the first registration that opens because StriveScan actually has their own registration for this. So really, the contracts are already signed with them. So it's entirely possible that if we don't announce everything together and if we need a little bit more time to put the finishing touches on the ad hoc schedule and the school counselor conference schedule, we might go ahead and launch this earlier. So are there any questions so far?
Hello, I have a question. My name is Flo and I am coming from UNC Asheville. I'm wondering, what do you—
All right. One thing that I didn't go back to the school counselor conference. I do have a sample schedule for that as well. So let me just exit out of here. And okay, so this is kind of the sample schedule for the North Carolina School Counselor Conference for this year. So really, I know you see like a lot of agenda items on here. Keep in mind that the school counselor conferences are more specifically for the organization. CACRAO is an organization, not necessarily you as the institution, to facilitate panels and the lunch and that type of thing. Okay, so really your time commitment as an institutional college representative is really for like North Carolina. It's this shortened stretch from like 8:30 to really the college information exchange. So basically the college information exchange, think of it as a college fair for the high school counselors. Okay. So after that and the networking brunch, you're pretty much done. After that, the rest of this is programming more specifically geared toward school counselors after the college fair portion. South Carolina looks very similar to this. There's lots of updates as far as professional associations like South Carolina Commission on Higher Education, CFNC does a lot of presentations. There'll be some financial aid sessions and that type of thing as well. South Carolina looks very similar. The only difference is it's a little bit more of a time commitment for the institutional college representatives, meaning you, because we also have room for what we call 2-minute updates. So basically all the registered college representatives will actually have an opportunity to present a quick 2-minute update for their institution, and not necessarily just an update, but I'll tell you what, I apologize. I'm going to have to pause this right now. I have a dog that's wanting to go out. I'm presenting from home, so just bear with me 1 second. I am so sorry. Sorry about that, y'all. So the joys of working from home on occasion, right? So that's kind of an idea. I notice I have a couple of questions in the chat, so let me take a look at that real quick. Okay, so Flo asked, what do you anticipate travel to be like for the fall in terms of virtual versus in-person recruitment? So hold on 1 second. The other animal wants to go. Okay, sorry again. So again, Flo asked, what do you anticipate travel to be like for the fall in terms of virtual versus in-person recruitment? So what we are doing is we have basically taken The last year that we were in person, which was the 2019 EdOp, and we are trying to replicate that schedule as closely as we can. Now, as far as capacity restrictions have largely been mostly all been lifted in both states, but we also do want to be mindful of requests made by our school districts and the school partners and that type of thing. So some of the schools are asking maybe for a little bit of additional time so that they can maybe not have quite as many students in a congregated area as we would see in the past. So really still planning to see the same number of students, but it might just be a little bit more time that we have to spend at a particular event just to kind of distance those students out. And as far as, but other than that, I mean, we're really trying to work with the exact same partners that we worked with, that we're used to working with for years and years of EdOp. I mean, this has been going on for 50 years. So we're just trying to replicate what we can, but being mindful of the current environment. We're also in exploring the possibility of mobile scanning options, also with StriveScan. When we first contacted StriveScan, that was actually the company that we were researching for mobile scanning options starting for fall of 2020. But once that canceled, luckily we already had them as a point of contact for the virtual college exploration when everything shifted virtually. So we were able to have that resource pretty well in place with them. But I hope that answers the question, is that we plan for a full in-person return. Now, do I expect that every single event will be the same or be able to participate? Probably not, but we are feeling pretty good about being pretty close to what we would expect in the past as far as the schools that we have committed to travel, either to bus their students to a consolidated college fair or to allow us, the college representatives, into their schools. So, so yeah, we'll be able to have the full schedule listed as far as participating high schools by August 9th. Does that answer the question, Flo? Okay, perfect. Thanks. Any other questions so far before we move on? We're going to kind of tackle a little bit more of the travel recommendations and things to be thinking about while we're registering, not necessarily just the events themselves, but kind of the work that it takes leading up to it. So let me move back over here. Okay, so preparing for travel season. So one of the things, and what I hope to tackle here are going to be things like how to make sure that you are registered and that type of thing. So a lot of these are questions that you're going to want to ask your supervisor, because each campus is different as far as you know, who registers you for the events. Is there an office manager or administrator that handles all of that registration internally, or do they basically assign you a purchase card for your college to where basically you are registering for the events in your own individual territory? So just make sure that you're having those conversations now, because that does help cut down on duplicate registrations, because you know, maybe the office manager thought that they were supposed to take care of it, but then you went and you also made the purchase too because you thought it was your responsibility. So just go ahead and start having those types of conversations now. And it's kind of the same thing with travel arrangements. Like I said, like as CACRAO and committee members, we offer recommendations, but we're not blocking off hotel rooms or things like that for you. So who's making the travel arrangements as far as hotel reservations, rental cars, flights? Typically, in my experience, I found that like the office manager can help you support those type things, but especially when it comes to like reservations and that kind of thing, you're usually going to be responsible for taking care of those. And I kind of touched on this just now, but will you be issued a university credit card, or will you need to have your own credit card and then submit like an expense voucher or other reimbursement form? So now is a good time to definitely be talking about that, because I know this is the Newcomers Conference. We have some folks that have traveled before, but a lot of college representatives this might be your first job right out of college, or not too long separated from it. So be thinking like, do I need my own personal credit card for this type thing, to where I am the one that basically, like, I don't have a university purchase card. I am purchasing this on my own, and then I'm going to submit for reimbursement afterwards. So be thinking about that as well, and exploring your credit card options, if it's kind of the latter deal there. Per diem. So like, what kind of per diem or per day expenses are you authorized to use? Do you need additional approval for larger purchases? So again, this is a conversation to be had to have with your supervisor, to think about things like, what's the maximum that I can spend on a hotel room? Because you don't want a surprise of, we all want to be good stewards of the financial coffers at our institutions, but you don't want an unpleasant surprise of, for some reason you just got a bad rate at a hotel or something like that, and then your institution says that they'll only reimburse up to a certain amount, or something along those lines. And this kind of applies to meals too, because I know a lot of state institutions, you just get like a set allotment per day, that you might get 4 meals while you're out on the road. So just be thinking about that. What does that amount look like? Or if it's not a per diem and you just submit expenses directly back. So basically again, it goes back to that expense voucher thing, to where you're putting a summary of your receipts together and keeping copies of those types of things. Be wardrobe ready. Again, talk with your supervisor about their expectations for what you wear, and also have a system for keeping notes regarding programs, because supervisors are probably going to want some feedback as far as your comments and thoughts regarding your interactions that you had there, the types of numbers of student inquiries, folks that you talked with at the fair. And then maybe some sort of like ranking system as far as how you're trying to gauge particular students' interest in your institution. And then also think about planning ahead for the materials that you keep, as far as brochures and other types of materials that you might want to travel with, because sometimes we have to start the day really early in the morning as far as getting to an event. And then sometimes your office might already be closed by the time you get back. So how can you still get access to materials if you do need to kind of replenish over the weekend or something along those lines? So just be thinking about that too. So things that will make your life on the road a lot easier. These are just some personal recommendations, and feel free to throw others in the chat if you've already done some work travel and you have some additional ideas. So I definitely like to keep a clothes hanger rack for the car. That way I can already have my dress shirts ironed, everything's, neat enough in there to where I'm not having to use those awful, and I don't care what hotel that you're at, like all the hotel irons and ironing boards are noisy and they do not work well. And you're just going to make a big racket while you do it. So I try and have as much pressed and tidy and that type of thing already in the car. That way I'm not trying to iron while I am on the road. However, I do recommend a portable handheld steamer to travel with. And you can get those for, $25 to $35 at Target or Walmart or something like that. I usually like to, because you might want to freshen up your shirt a little bit. Like if you've been sitting in the car and driving a long distance to the next event, or like, let's say you had several college fairs during the day, but you also have a night program. You might want to just kind of tidy up the shirt or blouse or whatever you dressed in for the earlier events, and just to have it ready to look presentable for the next one. Definitely a hanging tie accessory holder that you can use to organize ties, belts, scarves, and that type of thing. Also a sealable toiletry bag. You don't want shampoos and all that kind of stuff leaking all over the place. If you just have it like in the side of a duffel bag or something along those lines. So make sure that you have some sort of toiletry organizer and that type of thing as well. And then something like a zipper case for receipts, again, like especially for places where you're mostly going to get a paper receipt, something like most restaurants are still going to be, you're going to get some sort of paper receipt a lot of times. So just make sure that you have a way to organize those. Now, things like the hotels, rental car agreements and that kind of stuff. I mean, typically you're going to have like a PDF copy of those. Those are usually pretty easy to keep up with. If you're, once you're checking out, they'll usually go ahead and fire off a PDF copy of the receipt to you. But just something to think about as far as like smaller purchases that you might have to make on the road. Like you only had time to grab like a fast food meal or something like that, but you still want to get reimbursed for it. So just a way to keep up with this. I touched on this a little bit earlier, but just thinking about what to wear while you're out on the road. So each institution kind of has its own feel as far as what they expect as being wardrobe ready. So some are more casual, others are going to be more business casual, business formal. So just talk with your supervisor while you're touching base about things like who's registering, what kind of purchasing power do you have as an institutional representative? So while you're having those conversations, be thinking about this too. Definitely always carry your name badge and business cards with you. Just make sure that's, I know that's one of the biggest pet peeves for supervisors is like if you lose a name tag or forget to wear it or something along those lines. Just make sure that you have those on your person while you're out presenting. And again, when thinking about attire, know your audience. I mean, I remember, not that there's anything wrong with this, but I remember some schools would occasionally do like a Friday night tailgate with college reps thing. So if it was high school Friday night football, before the game, they would invite several college representatives to set up an information table and that type of thing. And I mean, it stays hot in South Carolina through the end of October. Okay. So football season's going on. I mean, maybe suit and tie isn't the best for anyone at that point, but your supervisor might want you in a coat and tie. I'm not knocking that. I'm just saying these are things to have that kind of conversation, is know your audience for the type of event that you're attending. Because if it's more of like a fun, casual type thing, like a tailgate event or something along those lines, you might just want to factor that into what you were planning. CACRAO itself, we don't have a dress code other than saying be professional in appearance. So this is largely going to be up to each individual institution and the representatives traveling to have that conversation as far as what their expectations are. Definitely be aware of the weather. Again, we're traveling while it's still hot and there are pop-up afternoon showers and thunderstorms. There's also, like I mentioned, storm season earlier as far as, weather like hurricanes and that type of thing. So just be mindful of the weather forecast and research any additional accessories that you might want to have with you. And travel safe. So be sure that you're factoring in traffic and other potential delays into travel time to an event. Now, luckily now with a lot of, if you maintain GPS updates and on your operating systems and that type of thing, you should also get alerts sometimes for if there's like heavy road construction in a particular area. So just factor in potential delays in traffic because a lot of times we're traveling during morning commutes and evening rush hour and that type of stuff. So just kind of keep an idea of, if we say that we're having an event that's from 5:30 to 7:30, depending on the distance to that, what would usually be a 10-minute drive could be you sitting in traffic for 30 or 45 minutes. So just keep those types of things in mind. Don't speed. That's why we say factor in that kind of information. to your initial decision on when you need to leave, because you don't want to have to report a ticket back in a state vehicle or a rental car or something along those lines. You don't want to have an accident either. So be sure that you're traveling safe and smart, and do that research ahead of time. That way you can arrive to the event safely and on time and not stressed because you've been stuck in traffic. Now, sometimes that is absolutely unavoidable. So we are not here to completely, throw you under the proverbial bus because you're running a little bit late. Accidents do happen, and traffic does happen despite our best, best planning, and that type of thing. So just do what you can. And that's why we include the contact information for the CACRAO site planner. That way, if you are going to be, if you're running behind, you have a point of contact that you could call or text or something along those lines, just to kind of give them a heads up. Do we have any more questions? I'm going to go ahead and go to the next screen, but just wanted to see if anyone else had anything along the way. And there'll be some, we'll have some time at the very end for a few other questions for those that want to unmute and ask if we want to have a conversation. Have just a couple of more slides here. It's also important, I think you have to take care of yourself out on the road, because as you saw with the sample schedule, I mean, sometimes we are doing 3 and 4 college fair events during the day, and then you're turning around and doing an evening program. So it is not uncommon to have several hundred conversations with prospective students and their families and school counselors and each other during the course of the day. So make sure that you have some time to decompress and to take care of yourself. So, if you're staying at the hotel, there's usually a gym in there. I mean, there might be a local park. You can read for pleasure, just whatever it is that you find enjoyable and that allows you to kind of unwind for a little bit. I definitely can't stress that enough, because again, I mean, I can't speak for everyone, but I know some folks might think that college representatives be like, oh, you just work for 1 hour here, 1 hour there at that event, 1 hour at that one, and then 2 hours. So really you're only adding up to 5 hours on the day, but that is not the case. There's the travel time to and from events. There's the prepping for it, making sure that your cases are packed to where, you're ready to go into the day's events, as far as like whatever travel carrier you might have, as well as following up on your regular office correspondence. So, I mean, I don't know of many member institutions where they don't still expect those traveling to still maintain some level of their they would usually be doing in-house. And I think that now, after being away from in-person events and almost everyone having more access to virtual work, and to where a lot of that will still be continuing on, I think that expectation only increases from here. So that's just my own personal observation on that. Just to make sure that you keep each other accountable, make friends out on the road, because for some reason, if you don't know the point of contact for an ed op event or something like that, and you're running a little bit behind, text your new friend from XYZ institution that you just met, or have maintained a friendship with, just so maybe they can relay the information if you're running late to a particular event. Okay, so a little bit of the fun part. So I won't dwell on this too terribly long. We're getting close to the hour. Hotel points, reward points. I'm a firm believer in setting up your accounts for that. So whether you're traveling Hilton, Marriott, IHG, which is like the Holiday Inns and that type of thing, make sure that you set up accounts. We're not going to get rich in the higher education profession, especially on the enrollment side of things. So make sure that we're applicable. I try and typically stay with a particular brand. I'm a Hilton guy. Others are Marriott. There's usually one option in all the areas that we travel, at least one option amongst those brands. So just kind of research that out. I still try and get the best rate possible between the two, but typically I err more on the Hilton side of things. Same thing with rental cars, airlines, and that type of thing, to where if you're making your own reservations, I can't recommend enough. Also setting up your accounts with those so that you can begin accruing points, and maybe, you can get an occasional free night stay out of it, or something along those lines. And we have one question. Can you please provide the website to access this presentation for future reference? Yes, this presentation is being recorded and it will be posted to the CACRAO website. So there is a landing page for this conference. And I can, while I have the whole screen shared, once I get to the end, I'll be sure to kind of go back to that landing page. I don't think the presentations are uploaded just yet. And sometimes that can take a little bit of time. So feel free to email me if you'd want your own copy. My email address, again, will be at the end of the presentation, and I can just go ahead and at least send you a copy of the PowerPoint before it's posted to the Newcomers Conference landing page. Does that sound good? Great. Thanks, Beverly. Okay. So loyalty points and tricks of the trade. So be sure to check your email. Many will send bonus point options with just a simple short registration, like they already have your email address and that kind of stuff. So, on occasion, Hilton will send out a notification. It's like, for this stretch of time, earn triple points just by clicking this link. So definitely take advantage of that kind of thing. Be sure that you're checking your email, not just for communications with very important prospective students and supervisors and that kind of thing, but make sure you're paying attention to those as well. If it's just one of those smaller benefits of the profession. On occasion, they will still send some regular mail. I know there was one time, this was probably 5 years ago, but Hilton sent out a postcard with 100,000 bonus points. So if you're not familiar with that necessarily point structure, most free night stays are between 30,000 to 60,000 points. So that's 1.5 to 2.5 stays, depending on the point value of it. So just be looking for those type things. Familiarize yourself with ways to advance through the tiered levels, like silver level, gold level, diamond, and all that kind of stuff too, because there are certain services that you can opt out of to where you can get additional points. Like, let's say you just want a granola bar in the morning instead of like Hampton Inn breakfast or something, or not Hampton Inn, that's free and included, but like Hilton Garden Inn or something like that. You can decline the free breakfast if you're like a diamond level member, and you just get like an extra 1,000 bonus points or something along those lines. So just be sure that you're checking your account settings to where if it's something that you don't want, like I know Hampton Inn, they say we'll either give you a free snack or you can decline the free snack when you check in and get 500 points. Well, I am addicted to points, so I turn down the Scooby snack and I get my 500 points. Okay, so again, I mentioned it earlier, registration for EdOp, school counselor conferences, and virtual college exploration will be available on or before Monday, August 9th. So again, have those conversations with your supervisor. Who's going to be responsible for your institution registering? Is it going to be a central office manager, or is the person traveling a particular territory, is that supposed to be the person that's doing those registrations? Basically, you as the college rep doing that, and then multiple people are signing up for their particular area. So be sure that you're having those conversations. Yeah, so what we'll go ahead and do, I'll pull this back up in a second, but I do just kind of want to show you the CACRAO website based on the previous question, and then some other things I was thinking about. I do already have it pulled up. So this is right off of the homepage. If you go to CACRAO.org and go to programs, it pulls up this screen, and this is what will link you directly to both the in-person programs for school counselor conferences and EdOp for the 2 states. It also has the primary point of contact for those. So Abe, Desi, and Kenneth Roach, those are the vice presidents for North Carolina admissions and South Carolina admissions, respectively. So basically, they are responsible for the overall direction of the North Carolina programming and South Carolina programming. They have committee chairs that also work closely with it, planning the individual events and that type of thing. But it does have, if you have more like broader questions, then Abay and Kenneth, who you probably have already met or corresponded with, because they are also responsible as the VPs for the Newcomers Conference itself. It also has the link to our virtual events. So the Stripe Scan registration information and everything, once that gets ready to go live, will be posted here as well. Now, their programs are going to be more of like the in-person, like student recruitment, school counselor meetings, and that type of thing. Events is where you can find information about our annual meeting. And this is a big year, y'all. This is the 50th anniversary of CACRAO. So we hope as many of you can join us on December 5th through the 7th in Raleigh, North Carolina for our big 50th anniversary. We'll have hotel information and that type of thing available on the website soon. Sorry that we keep some of the older stuff on there too, just for formatting purposes. So we'll hope you all join us in Raleigh, but we'll definitely see you out on the road before then. Then also there's the Newcomers Conference page, and this is going to be where we'll have like the postings once they become available. This is only the second session, but this is where they will be posted with the recordings and the presentations and that kind of stuff. Let's see here. Let me pull this back up one more time. And I know it'll just start me from the beginning, so we'll just leave it. We'll just leave it like that for now. So again, my name is Matt Cash. That's the email address on there. It's prez@cacrao.org. I leave that on there just because I am transitioning in between institutions right now. But I'll begin with Converse on August 2nd, but this will still get to me during that transition period. So that being said, feel free to unmute yourselves. If we have questions, I'll be happy to answer what I can. Or ask them in the chat.
I don't have any questions, but I would like to say thank you for the presentation. The information is very, very good information.
Thanks, Sally. Okay, y'all. Well, if there are no other questions, I appreciate you all joining us today. Be sure that you're checking the, oh, I do have a question. Oh, thanks, Caleb. I appreciate it. Thanks so much for the kind words and everything. It was, I'll have to say, like it was definitely wild fall 2020 when we were canceling events, but you know, there weren't events to go to. The schools were closed. It's been quite the undertaking to return to in person, but we are super excited, and we're super excited for you all to be part of the profession. Some of the best friends I will ever have are going to be those people that you travel with, because once you look at the schedule, especially during the fall, you're going to be making some of the best friends of your life. I know some might think that it's super competitive amongst, you know, rival institutions and that kind of thing. But, you know, you're going to meet a lot of awesome people, and you're going to learn from a lot of awesome people out here. So make those connections, make those friendships. They're going to last a lifetime if this is a profession that you have an interest in. So we're looking forward to seeing everyone back in person, and we'll have more details available soon. Again, our goal is to have it no later by August 9th. If we can get it done earlier, we'll definitely post it just as soon as it's available. So again, man, I ran right to time and everything. It's almost like I know how to present virtually. It only took me 2 years to figure it out. So anyway, again, I appreciate it. Y'all take care, and join us next week for the next session. Bye, everyone.